Hello everyone, my name is Devin and welcome to my channel. What I'm about to reveal, many of you will automatically doubt because it seems unfathomable that such a hoax could be perpetuated on so many generations of Americans. But it has, not only in the case I'm about to address, but others as well. So, what am I talking about? It's not about presidential elections supposedly being stolen by ballot fraud. That's a distraction from the real deceit taking place right in front of all our faces. I'm talking about the Electoral College. Now, before jumping to conclusions, hear me out. As a general rule, the left hates it while the right loves it. But what if I told you that what they have you either hating or loving is a bastardization of the Electoral College? With all their talk of either abolishing or continuing to alter it here and there, it's interesting how neither side discusses restoring it to its original sound intent, even from the so-called conservatives. Before jumping directly into the Electoral College, it first needs to be addressed why we have a democratic republic rather than a pure democracy. In short, the founders knew that such a democracy was unrealistic, especially in a large and diverse country such as ours. That the passions of the people can easily be manipulated into betraying their own interests. That pure democracies are extremely dangerous, considering a simple majority at any time can remove the rights of the minority. Paraphrasing James Madison here, this is what makes true democracies, ever spectacles of turbulence and contention, incompatible with human security or the rights of property. So, the founders did everything to their knowledge and power to temper our passions without destroying the object to be secured, our liberty. James Madison, who is widely recognized as the chief architect of the U.S. Constitution, had this, among other things, to say about democracies and republics. The effect of the first difference, the delegation of government, is, on the one hand, to refine and enlarge the public views by passing them through the medium of a chosen body of citizens, whose wisdom may best discern the true interests of their country, and whose patriotism and love of justice will be least likely to sacrifice it to temporary or partial considerations. Under such a regulation, it may well happen that a public voice, pronounced by the representatives of the people, will be more consonant to the public good than if pronounced by the people themselves, convened for the purpose. Yet, instead of citizens of each district in their state directly electing principled and independent electors to represent them at the Electoral College, just as we do our representatives in Congress, the states have foolishly trusted the political parties with choosing the electors in most states, should their candidate win the popular vote of that state. Various parties over time have dubiously reasoned that when a citizen casts a vote for POTUS, we're at the same time choosing our electors, and the American people as a whole have been swallowing it hook, line, and sinker ever since. With most states implementing a winner takes all the electorates, they are disenfranchising the majority of citizens in each district that rejects the state's popular vote winner. One of the advantages of the Electoral College is to prevent a few heavy populated states from dictating the presidency to a majority of lesser populated states. This is what Republicans argue when defending it, yet that's precisely what they have allowed our state governments to do. The few heavily populated districts, which is typical of most states, will dictate to the rest of the districts. Not only do they decide who represents the rest of us at the Electoral College, but also who, quote, our electors will vote for. While this undoubtedly works great for the parties, does it work great for you in America? They have taken what should be our wise independent electors and turned them into mere automatons of private parties and the popular vote. Why even go to the trouble and expense of having electorates if that's the case? Why not have the secretary of each state declare the winner of their electorates when they certify the popular vote? To answer my own question, because they have to maintain the illusion they are still following the Electoral College as per the Constitution. Here is what Alexander Hamilton said in Federalist Paper number 68 concerning the selection of these electorates. But the convention have guarded against all danger of this sort, with the most provident and judicious attention. They have not made the appointment of the president to depend on any pre-existing bodies of men who might be tampered with beforehand to prostitute their votes, but they have referred it, in the first instance, to an immediate act of the people of America, to be exerted in the choice of persons for the temporary and sole purpose of making the appointment, and they have excluded from eligibility to this trust all those who from situation might be suspected of too great devotion to the president in office. So much for that principle. For do we not have pre-existing bodies of men, aka political parties, slavishly devoted to their party's candidates, selecting electors who have the same zeal as they do? While it's generally accepted that the states can ultimately decide how their electors will be selected, it is without a doubt they have violated the spirit of the original intent. Alexander Hamilton of the Federalist Party, along with Thomas Jefferson and James Madison of the Democratic Republican Party, were so disgusted by this act they wanted to amend the Constitution in order to assure electors will be chosen at the district level by a consensus of the citizens of each. Unfortunately, it didn't come to fruition. To be fair, since this subversion began taking place almost immediately after our Constitution was ratified, the bad precedent has been ingrained into most people's heads where they don't give much consideration at all to it. It's the way it's been, and it's the system they know. Though that doesn't mean that people throughout the years haven't railed against it. Published in 1833, Supreme Court Justice Joseph Story, in his Commentaries on the Constitution of the United States, had this to say about the perversion of the Electoral College. It has been observed with much point that in no respect have the enlarged and liberal views of the framers of the Constitution and the expectations of the public when it was adopted been so completely frustrated as in the practical operation of the system, so far as relates to the independence of the electors in the electoral colleges. It is notorious that the electors are now chosen wholly with reference to a particular candidates, and are silently pledged to vote for them. Nay, upon some occasions, the electors publicly pledge themselves to vote for a particular person, and thus, in effect, the whole foundation of the system, so elaborately constructed, is subverted. In his dissenting opinion in Ray v. Blair, 1952, Supreme Court Justice Robert H. Jackson said this: "No one faithful to our history can deny that the plan originally contemplated, what is implicit in its text, that electors would be free agents to exercise an independent and nonpartisan judgment as to the men best qualified for the nation's highest offices." To compound that court's damage, on July 6, 2020, the Supreme Court in Chiafalo v. Washington again fallaciously sided with the states and opined that faithless electors can be punished if they dare vote their conscience, all but guaranteeing knaves and the dupes of designing men will be selected to participate in faithfully electing the scoundrels the parties offer us. Think about this. What if some damning revelation comes out about a candidate after their electors have been selected months before the general election, or the people foolishly vote for someone who is already known to be unworthy of public office and a threat to our constitutional order? Under this mockery of law, the electors will all be forced under threat of punishment to vote for such a person. Another check and balance in the Constitution has been successfully subverted thanks to the teamwork of both Republicans and Democrats. Also know this: at the Republican National Convention of 1880, there was an attempt to bind all the delegates to support the party's nomination. It almost succeeded if it weren't for a dozen or so brave dissenters. In defense of Representative James Garfield, a Republican who would soon become President Garfield, said these words of a free man: "There never was a convention, there never can be a convention, of which I am one delegate, equal in rights to every other delegate, that shall bind my vote against my will on any question whatever." Why is it we don't find and elect people like that anymore? To quickly recap, From the onset and over time, the political parties have used their state governments to transform the Electoral College into a mostly pointless exercise. Rather than restore the Electoral College to its original and fair intent, they embrace a system that punishes electors, aka American citizens, if they don't acquiesce to their false dichotomies. In the tradition of bad precedent, the Republican Party has us fighting for a bastardized Electoral College, while the Democrats use the corruption they've been a party to persuade people to progress towards the even bigger calamity in waiting known as the national popular vote. Another false dilemma on top of another. What do you all think? Would simply returning to each district, selecting their own independent elector, make it harder for parties to tamper with the presidential election? Unfortunately, the corruption doesn't stop there. It of course extends to the election of the vice president as well, which I'll cover in part 2. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all there too.